Good afternoon. This is Ted Warner with the Texas Library Association, welcoming you to today's webinar, Exemplary Practices for Friends of Small Public Libraries, presented by Karen Boyd and Mary Jane Morgan from the Friends of the Alpine Public Library. I want to welcome everyone who's with us today, and especially our speakers, Karen and Mary Jane. We're very glad to have you here today. Some quick tips before we start. You may want to close other programs on your computer to conserve bandwidth and avoid a slow signal. Sometimes that happens. We are recording today's webinar. A link to the recording will be sent to everyone who registered. You'll also be able to print continuing education certificates tomorrow at www.txla.org/CE if CE credit is something you might be looking for. Just click the CE Registration and Credit Certificates button at the top of the left-hand menu on that page. Our friends today, our presenters, are from Alpine, Texas, which is a town of about 6,000 people out in West Texas. It's a beautiful town next to the mountains. I have been there and thought it was a wonderful, wonderful place. And this is their brand new Alpine Public Library that just opened last year. It's a gorgeous facility, and in fact, this wonderful library was named one of the top 3 small libraries in America according to Library Journal. They were a finalist for that award, which is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in February of this year. These are some of the Alpine Public Library, and I want to point out the library director, Paige Delaney, who's off there on the left. Mary Jane Morgan is one of our speakers, and you see her on camera now. Hi, Mary Jane.
Hi.
And our other speaker is Karen Boyd, who we'll see a little bit later. The Friends of the Alpine Public Library has a web page, which you see there right now, and this is their mission, that in appreciation of the role the library plays in the quality of life in the Big Bend area, the Friends of the Alpine Public Library work to provide and strengthen library services and support a varied menu of programs for the citizens of their area, consistent with the goals and objectives of the Alpine Public Library and its board of directors. And Alpine is one of the unique libraries in Texas because it is actually a private institution. It is not a department of the city of Alpine, but a private institution with its own board. Some of the programs that we'll be talking about today are their silent auction and their rereads bookstore. And for the silent auction, Mary Jane, I'll hand it over to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ted. We decided in late 2008 that we were going to build a new Alpine Public Library. So we were challenged with fundraising, and it came to us this opportunity for the silent auction. Alpine sponsors an art walk, which is held the weekend before Thanksgiving. And the various galleries, and we do have probably 5 or 6 galleries in town, but also local businesses have artists that come and display their work each year. And we have, it's a Chamber of Commerce event where many come to the city and visit Alpine, visit the galleries, and they always had a silent auction, but it had kind of lost its momentum, and they realized that we were out there trying to raise money for our new library, so they offered us the silent auction, and we accepted and tried to take it a step or two above what they had ever had before. And we have earned from $13,000 to $24,000 as a result of our efforts. We needed a place to hold the event, and we had an old theater in Alpine, which, let me get the right slide. Okay, we had an old movie theater, which an individual had come to town and had converted it into a multi-purpose center we call the Granada. And the silent auction is held there each year, and we use the facility at no cost to the library. We rent 3 by 9 foot tables and tablecloths. We have purchased lighting for the tables to showcase the various items. The Art Walk Committee expects each individual who exhibits at one of the galleries or the businesses to donate a piece of work to the silent auction. Art Walk always has a featured artist whose work is prominently displayed at our auction. About a month before the auction, our committee members each take several businesses that will have artist work displayed and call on them to ensure that items are being donated. Library board members and members of the Friends of the Library also donate items such as books, antiques, or jewelry. We always worry that we're not going to have enough items, but we always get more than we expect. After the first year, we've thought, well, this has worked out well, but we maybe need to do something just a little different. So we had a wheelbarrow donated, and we asked the board members to donate bottles of wine. And we sold opportunities to win the wheelbarrow full of wine, which usually contain anywhere from 15 to 20 bottles of wine, both white, red, whatever. And they bought the opportunity for $5, or they could buy 5 opportunities for $20. And we made roughly $1,500 on the wine the first year. Then we decided, well, maybe we need something else new. And we were told that I don't drink wine. So, being in West Texas, we're beer drinkers. So we decided to add a second wheelbarrow and fill it with 6 packs of beer. We sold the opportunities to win for the same price as the wine. And some bought as many as 10 tickets and put half in the drawing for the wine and half in the drawing for the beer. Now, we were told last year that we were buying too many sissy wines, that we needed to, beers, and that we needed to stick with some of the good old Texas kind of beer. So we did that, and with the 2 wheelbarrows, we made over $2,000. Then we were coming on to our 3rd year, and we thought, we need something different to do this time. And we never turned down anything that was donated. We felt like there were too many inexpensive items in the auction which cluttered the display tables. So we set up a separate area and called it the Buy It Now section, where people could purchase an item and take it with them right then. The first year items in Buy It Now were valued by the donor at $20 or less. We found that it was easy to procure items of this value. It was things like jewelry, scarves, tools, and there were plenty of items. We made about $2,000 on Buy It Now items the first year. Last year, we increased the value to $25 and made around $2,500. Then, now we're coming to our 5th year, and we decided that a portion would be dedicated to a live auction. Now, the art walk starts at 10 o'clock on Friday morning and ends at whatever time on Saturday night. But what we do is we end ours much earlier than that. And on Friday evening, people are beginning to come into town. And so we had a live auction last year. This was the first time that we had done this. We had 7 items of higher value than the other items in the silent auction. And we auctioned them at the live auction, which earned over $8,000. We had a printed catalog, which we circulated in town and handed out to visitors to the silent auction. We had free drawings for donated baked items throughout the auction to create more interest. We also provided free wine. And we continue to plan we are going to continue having the live auction as a part of the silent auction. Okay, now then, who puts all this together and who does the work? Well, guess. Volunteers. Your auction is only as successful as the participation of your volunteers. We have library board members as well as members of the Friends of the Library who volunteer to work 2-hour shifts on both Friday and Saturday from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. each day. On Thursday, we have about 12 volunteers who help set up for the silent auction. Last year, we had a total of 34 volunteers working the event. And I cannot stress enough the importance of being sure that your volunteers are thanked and recognized for their efforts, as well as the donors. The donors each received a thank you letter, which they can use as a tax write-off for their donation, and also just to thank them for supporting our auction. And I think it's very, very important that you always remember to thank those people. Then, picking up the sold items. This is one of the areas where we have had to do some work and some refining since the first auction that was held 5 years ago. At registration, we require a cell phone number when we give out bid numbers. We close the auction at 8 p.m. on Saturday evening and ask that everyone leave the Granada except for the volunteers. We determine who the lucky persons are that get to purchase their items. We don't call them winners, it's just the ones that get to buy these things. We reopen at 9 p.m. for items to be purchased. We call winners on their cell phones if they do not show up before we close on Saturday night to tell them we will be open on Sunday morning for items to be picked up. Most items are picked up, but those that are not taken to the library, and a committee member tries to contact the bidder. We have had people that have left town, and some of us have been going out of town for Thanksgiving and have taken their items to their communities. We have the drawing for the winner of the wheelbarrows about 7 o'clock before we close the auction to determine those that get to purchase items. So it's a fun-filled weekend. And last year, once we added the live auction, we earned almost $24,000. I think it was $23,800 something. So it has been a very successful fundraiser for us. But we owe a great deal of gratitude to the Art Walk Committee for inviting us to participate. Our library is built, we're moved in, but now we use the funds that we earn from the silent auction for library operations. If you have any questions, you can get back to me. I would be happy to talk about the silent auction with any of you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Karen Boyd, who is going to talk with you about another item that we participate in that provides lots of funds for the library. Well, lots may not be the right word.
It's
Significant.
lots.
Significant.
We like to think of it as lots. Can I get the mouse?
There you go.
We're getting everything settled here. Where is it?
Okay, right there.
Okay, Reread's Used Bookstore. And it began, some of the friends way back in 2004 got the idea of having a bookstore. They were diligent. They pursued it. They got a building built. And I like to refer to it as a funky building because it was a metal building that was designed to rust. And for a while, we had more people stopping to look at the building than to come in and look at books, which was fine with us because they often saw something they wanted. The books are all donated by the library. We get their rejects, and by individuals. We have a number of volunteers. I think I get screen down here. A number of volunteers, and they work 3.5-hour shifts per day, and we have, I'll get into that later. We try to schedule regular hours, and it was very difficult in the beginning because it was a question as to whether the bookstore would be open or not, because we weren't that settled as to what was happening. They were tried to be open Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 5, and on Friday from 10 to 5. Fridays and Saturdays, I'm sorry. All the books are donated by patrons and by the library. Our paperbacks sell for 50 cents, which just blows some people's minds when they come in and they can walk out with an armload of books and they've only paid like $3 or $4. Hardbacks sell for about $2, and as the store has progressed, we have gotten so that we charge more for certain things, like first edition books are $3. At the beginning, when they had a short period of time that they were open, the receipts, we were real happy if we got $500 to $700 a month. And then when we began increasing the number of hours we were open, we were up to $1,000 a month, and we were just in hog heaven with that. We have a pool of about 25 to 40 volunteers. Some will work 1 3.5-hour shift a month, and others will work like 5 shifts during a month. And we're very flexible with them, and we have to be flexible with what we request of them, because just with sickness and everything, it upsets the apple cart often. The volunteers, when they come to work, we don't say that they have to do a certain task. They can sit there and read a book the whole time. And one volunteer would comment that she loved working there because it was the only chance she got to read uninterrupted. She would be interrupted by customers, but that was different than having her children or husband or the pets or whatever come in. So our volunteers are pretty happy people, and the fact they keep coming back. At the beginning, getting the volunteers was kind of haphazard almost. They were contacting the volunteers by email and sometimes by personal contact. In 2007, I became the volunteer coordinator and decided I wasn't going to do email unless someone specifically requested it. It was much nicer for me to be able to call someone and say, could you work such and such Tuesday morning? They'd say yes or no, and then I could try other times. If I did it by email, you never knew if they got the email, and just all the messages got crossed up. So,
Karen,
yes.
we ask a question about volunteers. Ron is asking, how do you get young people involved in your projects? So do you have any special outreach that you do to younger volunteers?
Not really, because most of our volunteers are older.
Retired.
Yes, retired people here in town. We do have some volunteers that are younger. They have so many other responsibilities if they have children. We have not really had high school or college volunteers just because they're so busy with the rest of their lives. Does that answer that question?
I think so. He has some other questions about the auctions, but we'll do that after you finish.
After 2009, we began to be open Monday through Saturday from 10 to 5. And that made a lot of difference because we get people traveling through Alpine because we're a long way away from everybody else. So like on Tuesdays, we found out that a number of people would, I think it's Tuesday, a number of people from down south, which is what we call the Big Bend Park area, would come to Alpine to do their grocery shopping. And they enjoyed coming by rereads and getting some cheap books, and they could trade them out when they came back in 2 weeks or a month. So we have it's such a large area that we service that it's good to have the very consistent hours so people knew that, yes, if we go to Alpine, we can go to the grocery store and then we can go buy rereads and it will be open. It won't be just a chance. The turnover in our volunteers, and we have some that have been volunteering since we began, and others only last for a day or two, or a month or two. At one point, I had a volunteer, and I was all set to train her, and I called, and when I called her to make sure we were set on the time, she hung up on me. And I was kind of destroyed for a while, thinking she didn't like me. But I just did never call her back, and we got along fine with the volunteers we have. When we moved to the new building, we'll go through that later, but we had a number of mechanical things that changed. Number one being that we were on a computer. Some of our volunteers, being older, and they never really had conquered a computer, and they just said, I can't do this, and they quit being volunteers. But even when you think that nobody's going to show up, generally you can get it covered. The special sales, we have one volunteer, and she is a real jewel, because she goes through the books, the donations, and sorts out ones that she thinks are valuable or that we could get more money for. She checks it on internet, and so if she finds some that she thinks we could sell for more, we go for the low end if it's a range of prices that the book is getting. She knows the clientele of the people who come in for special events. And we have the annual Cowboy Poetry Gathering in February and the Center for Big Bend Studies annual meeting in November. And she has worked with these groups. They have tables at their event, and so we buy a table, and I think we often get them for free, don't we? Yeah. And some of these groups will give us a table just to come, and they're delighted to have us there. And anyway, so she targets books for them and makes sure that they get there. She knows that some of the people are coming back year after year, so she watches for special ones. And she is the person who creates the special displays in rereads, although other volunteers also help. Just a moment. Garage sales. We do have garage sales, even though we don't have a garage. But we have done this a couple times a year because we have more books than we have room. And even with the new building, where we have a big workroom, we're ready to add another room practically so we could store more. But when we have a book sale, we get some donations, and they've been in someone's garage for months, years, and their books are musty, and we just don't really want them in with our other good books. So these are good garage sale items. For a garage sale, we sell a bag of books for like $5, and it's as many books as they can get into the bag we give them. And we've had funny things there. Like one woman came up, she had her bag just crammed full. She probably had 35, 40 books in her sack. And she said, I'd like to get this one more. Do I need to buy another bag? And we said, no, you just go ahead and take it. And you could almost take more if you want them. But so we have a lot of our books. I have down on the picture there. We have many books by some of our more prolific authors, and we have so many of them. Like, I'm not picking on them individually, I guess, but I am. Danielle Steele writes more books than I can, or publishes more books than I can imagine. James Patterson, John Grisham. Some of these, they've been Book of the Month Club. They've, all kinds of special things. So we get a lot of them donated, and they don't turn over that fast for us. They do turn over. We also give books to other libraries or groups that ask for them. And that we have done, I can't even remember all of them. Men in the service. We give books to the jail. We also have other people, volunteers that travel out to the jail and make sure it's clean and neat, and the books are being used, and they definitely are being used. I mentioned the musty books. We get some that are just torn up and they're just too shabby for us to put in the store. We have a number of non-book items like t-shirts and mugs, jewelry, bookmarks, onesies, and if you're not a young mother, well, you probably don't even know what a onesie is, but we have some that are hand painted, and they work, but they're not big sellers, but we have them in the store. Also cards, and people will be getting, sometimes they'll come in and they'll get books as gifts, and so it's nice for them to have a card too. Thank you to our donors and to our volunteers. Like I mentioned, that we do have get-togethers occasionally for volunteers. The volunteers are generally, they're older women, and they want to give their time rather than money because they don't have that much money being retired. Some of them do give a lot though, so they don't want to get out and go to parties really. They just come around. We moved to the new library. We got rid of our funky little building. A man bought it, and so we had books in storage for a long time till we were ready to get in here. With this, we changed our hours so that we corresponded with the library hours so that we wouldn't be open when the library wasn't, just so people don't wander around. We were ecstatic because now we have central heat and air, we have a telephone, we have a computer and a credit card machine, and the major thing is there's a restroom right across the hall because our funky building did not have any of these things. Our income has increased to about $1,200 a month, and some months we are above that. So we think we're doing very well. If you're looking at the slides, here's a picture of what rereads looks like now, which is not at all what we used to look like. There's a special display on that shelf that's looking right, you're looking straight at it. Here's the card case. We don't do anything to try and keep track of inventory or what we have or have had, because sometimes people will bring in a donation, we'll put it on the shelf, and it'll be gone in 3 hours. This is our workroom. And this was taken, I think, on last Monday or Tuesday. We got a large donation on Tuesday, and that's it, piled all over there. But we get real excited when this counter gets cleared off enough so that we can see the countertop. Generally, we can't. This is just a large table we have on that wall, but the back are hardback books, and we have gotten them alphabetized, so if someone comes in and asks for something specific, we can either find it or say, no, we don't have it. Are there any other questions? Typed in here.
Actually, we did have quite a few questions come in while you both were speaking, so I just want to review those from the start. Ron had originally asked about the auctions. How are the live auction donations different from silent auction donations?
They are items that are valued at a higher value than the items in the regular auction. In fact, we go to some of the artists in our area. For example, we have a lady in Fort Davis, and we went to her and told her what we were doing and asked if she would donate one of her paintings, and she did. And those paintings sell anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So that would definitely be a live auction item. We tried to have a variety of items in the live auction. We have one board member who makes a garden in hay bales, and in our dry area it works well. So she donated to the auction a hay bale garden, and it had gotten up to about $500, and 3 people were bidding on it. So our auctioneer said, Ann, would you be willing to do 3 if these people would each agree to pay $500 for the hay bales? And they did. So that was one of the items that we had. Another was we have a local silversmith in town who usually donates a pair of earrings to the silent auction. But one donor donated a piece of the jewelry, and so it was that kind of items. Does that answer your question?
Ron will probably respond, but I'm guessing that probably gives him the kind of detail that he's looking for. Good, yes, he says yes. He had also asked about young people, and Karen had addressed that. But as we go on to the next question, I'll mention in passing, a lot of communities also, their high school or college students may have service projects, community service obligations as part of their high school or college degree, and that's also a good way to get young people involved. He also, Roanne, you were going to say?
Well, I was going to add that at one of our garage sales recently, I failed to attend the Friends meeting, so I ended up being in charge of that garage sale. And I got a group from the high school that came at the end of the day, on the second day, and helped us prepare the books to be taken to recyclers, and actually took a pickup load out to recyclers. So we do use young kids for things like that. Okay.
One thing
Excellent.
that is disturbing when we do recycle things, and you've got young people and you're telling them to tear apart books, and you kind of go, wait a minute, this isn't what we should be doing, but you can't keep them all. Excuse me, you had to.
No, libraries know that. Ron also says, or this is Roanne Moon, asks, do you label each book or have certain codes? And I think this is referring to the
No.
bookstore.
When we get a book in, say we get a Sue Grafton, we put it right on the shelf or as quickly as we can. If someone brings in a whole box of books, we'll sort through them, but it'll take us a while. We don't try to put them on the computer at all. And
You do put them in alphabetical order, don't you?
we do put them in alphabetical order. We get magazines donated. They are free. Anybody who wants to come in and take an old magazine, they're welcome to it. To put things on the computer would just be too much. Our volunteers,
And
too much well, it'd be wasted effort, I think, on a lot of the time, because you know, we don't want to list all 10 copies we have of Danielle Steele's whatever. And we would have no reason to keep track of it because we don't care. Is that fair?
You're just trying to
Yes,
serve your
and
community.
if a very valuable book was donated and we missed the fact that it was valuable, we're very sorry, but we just missed it. We have one man that used to come and people would leave donations on the porch of the old building, and he thinks we're terrible because we don't leave them out now so that he can dig through them and look for treasures. We think the treasures should benefit the library rather than him.
Ron was also asking about, tell again about the building used by the Reread's bookstore. It's a wing of the library. And yes, you did move into the new library. You just talked about that.
No.
Do you have to pay rent for
We get it free, and we love the library for it.
He asks, is the collection on the computer? And you had actually just addressed that. So you don't use, there's no kind of cataloging or inventory program involved. It's a very simple process.
When we make a sale, it's going into a program that the accountant uses, and there's really no way to track on that. Like somebody was saying, oh, we should keep track of all the first edition books, but no, it just, it's not feasible.
Are non-book items also donated?
We had like the onesies. There's one of the library volunteers who made them. Bookmarks. We have people that, we have some little felt bookmarks. We have some crocheted bookmarks. One woman is an artist and she painted some and then laminated them. So yes, most of our extra things are donated. Someone bought the mugs for us. And are the t-shirts all donated? We buy the t-shirts, but we mark them up.
In the store, do you give receipts for tax purposes?
Donations?
For the donations.
Yes, anyone who donates a lot of books can get such a statement. If they're bringing in 6 paperbacks, they don't really care, and neither do we.
Andrea notes that she is in the process of raising money for a new library. And I don't know if Paige is still with you. They were wondering what the cost of your new library was.
I chaired the capital campaign committee. The library cost $1.4 million, and we were able to raise that, and the library was completely paid for when we moved into it. One of the most successful things that we did was we sent out mass mailers, and we used a company in Dallas, and it went to every mailing address in Brewster County. And then we did that 2 or 3 times, and that's how we really kick-started our fundraising. And then we had several groups, and we have several grants, and one of our largest grants was $100,000 from AEP, and we had other people that donated larger sums of money. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Ron also, he notes that they use high school students too with service hours, but they often need supervision themselves. Ms. Moons asks, how much do you charge for trade paperbacks in the bookstore?
We don't trade.
Trade for paperbacks?
Trade paperbacks, those big paperbacks.
The big ones we call softbacks, and they are $1. All the regular size paperbacks are 50 cents. Oh, children's books, paperbacks are a quarter and hardback children's are 50 cents. And also our children's librarian has a number of projects that she does with the children, and she'll give them coupons good for a book at reread. So like a month or so ago, we got all these vegetable coupons that she had done some kind of special thing with them where she was teaching about vegetables. So they didn't have to buy a vegetable book, but they brought their coupons in and got a free one.
I will the question about
Ron is
supervision.
Oh, go ahead.
I
Go
am
ahead.
a retired high school math teacher, so yes, the kids do need supervision. And when we had the group cleaning up from the garage sale and going to recycle, I was with them the whole time. And if we ask large, a student group to come from the high school, their sponsors expected to be here to help.
Okay. And Ron was asking, what do you do with paperback or book donations you can't use because of condition?
Well,
and I think you spelled that out, that those go into the garage sales.
Like we got one donation recently and it was all musty. And you just, when we opened the box, it was kind of like, nobody wants to put these books on a shelf no matter what it's about. So we just pitched them. And we work with the recycle center.
You do have a collection policy too.
We have a policy.
Oh, yes, they're saying we do have a policy, like we do not take Reader's Digest, select edition, where it's multiple books in a book. We don't take, pardon?
National Geographics, too,
No,
I bet.
Oh, we have hundreds of
National Geographics.
people will come. We give them away free.
Oh, you do?
Just like all the magazines, and people take whole boxes. And we also we try to sell books through Better World, or to Better World Books. And that has worked fairly well. We have a couple of volunteers, and they will, as we sort through and we find which ones to ship out, they will pack the books and we get them taken care of that way. The abundance of books is really scary sometimes. And when we moved to the new library, one of the board members thought we should ask the city of Alpine, everybody donate a book. And we were like, no, don't do that, because we have plenty of books. No.
Do you sell online at
We
all?
haven't ever tried it, and I doubt that we will.
Okay. Ron has another bookstore
No.
question. Did you
The
rent the
library
old
has
building
gotten
where you were
together
before?
and built the building, and it was on, it was all on county land, I believe. So we were just very fortunate to have the opportunity to use the building. Well, we have.
When you recycle a book, who is your recycler?
It's the city. And it's also, pardon?
Oh, it's the city recycling.
Yes.
The city recycling service, probably then. And when you sell, and these are all questions that are coming in now. Did you say that when you sell the books to a half-price book sort of bookstore, and I assume that Better World Books is a physical bookstore that is near you in Alpine?
Just a moment.
Here's Paige.
Better World Books is an online seller, and we screen the books through their website. If they want them, they pay the shipping. The books get shipped to Better World Books, and then they sell them online. Any books that they can't sell, they recycle. And we get about 15% of sales of regular books through them, about 50% of rare books that we send to them. And so it's worked out pretty well.
So there is some online
directly.
sales that do
Also,
go
we
on
have
through
had
this
a
third party.
rare book sales, and the first one was very profitable. The second, well, the first one had books that the library had kind of been sitting on for years, and so we put them in this rare book sale. We haven't had such treasures since then, so we haven't really had another powerful rare book sale.
But I'm assuming that the library or your volunteers go through the books
yeah.
to
You
sort
see
them before it goes to the
bookstore
Better World Books.
in the slide that's on the screen. 2 or 3 of us will go in there and just start, this and this keep, this and this get rid of, whatever. A lot of old textbooks, since we have Sul Ross University here in town, we do get a number of old textbooks, and we either put them in the garage sale or we give them to some of the clubs up at Sul Ross, or Better World Books takes some of them.
And that touches a little bit on another question about the bookstore. Are the books arranged on the shelves by genre or by author? And I think some places are by author within genre. How do you do it?
Groups are very flexible, and since we have volunteers that do shelving, if, somebody will come in and they'll say, oh, this is in totally the wrong place, and we'll say, well, then move it. So but we do try. We have one aisle that is fiction, one side hardback, one side paperback. The next aisle is mystery, again hardback, paperback. Then we have a nonfiction aisle, and across the back of the store, and that is broken down into a number of areas. We have a large print area, we have a children's area, a young adult area, and then we have westerns, because we're in the West and we sell a lot of them. And we have DVDs and audiobooks and CDs. And we have quit doing VHS tapes just because nobody has a VHS player anymore.
And I think we have one more question about the bookstore, and then we have some specific questions about your friends group. How do you get so many books donated to you? Is it just that people love the library so much?
Been collecting junk for a long time.
How do you
children?
These many
they
books?
have died, and their children are cleaning out their house. I'm being facetious with that, but people clean house, and they just bring us. Would you take the books? And we'll take everything except an encyclopedia or the Reader's Digest Select Editions.
And as Karen said a while ago, we are also a university town with a small university, Sul Ross State University. And there is simply a mindset here that books are important and no one wants to throw away or destroy a book. So the library is a perfect place to get rid of books that you no longer have room for in your home.
Really?
And Roanne notes that textbooks are among their bigger revenue makers at their library. In terms of your friends group, okay, first of all, how big is your friends group? And are all the volunteers members of the group?
A number of retired women generally, and they though they like to give their time, but they don't have the money to give. But many of them are members. It's hard to keep track because our volunteers fluctuate so much. And how big is the?
About 60 membership.
60 members in the Friends group right now. Yes.
About 60
$20
people.
is-
Is there an annual fee to become a member of the Friends?
And then we have a business membership, which is 50, and I believe it's a patron membership that's 100, or however much you'd want to give. I think we still do a senior citizen $10 membership.
Okay. Well, seeing no further questions, I want to thank you so much. If we have another question here, I'll pass it on. But thank you so much for this very detailed description of your programs at this very top small library in the United States, the Alpine Public Library. We very much appreciate this. I think the audience, who are mostly from small town libraries themselves, will be very appreciative of this, and these are programs that they'll be able to replicate or expand in their small towns. You've been listening to Exemplary Practices for Friends of Small Public Libraries, presented by Karen Boyd and Mary Jane Morgan from the Friends of the Alpine Public Library. We again thank you so much. This was a wonderful program, tons of great information. I also want to mention to our audience that there are 3 more upcoming TLA webinars in this grants and fundraising series. Grants available from the Talker Foundation, which funds a tremendous number of library efforts throughout the state, will be at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, May 21st. Grant Research with Grant Station, a database of grants, will be at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, May 29th. And Grants Management with Jennifer Peters will be 2 p.m. on Thursday, May 30th. And that's, of course, once you've got the grant, you've got the letter, you have the money, what do you do then? And if you have further questions, please do contact me. But we do have a request about contact information for our speakers. And
I think the easiest way would be
would one of you care to, should they contact you through the library, through Page? How would you like people to reach you?
837-2621. The address is 805 Avenue E, West Avenue E, Alpine, Texas 79830. And I guess that's about it.
Okay.
Sure, just
Paige, is there an email address by which people could reach you if they have questions about Alpine Library itself? Director at alpinepubliclibrary.org. And I'm just adding this to the chat so that people will have it. And again, this will all be available. We'll send a recording of this tomorrow to everyone who's registered, so they'll be able to share this information